When we think about military aircraft, most of us picture the famous fighters and bombers that dominated the skies. But beneath these well-known warbirds lies a fascinating world of experimental aircraft that pushed the boundaries of what we thought possible. Today, we'll explore 10 of the most extraordinary military planes that many people have never heard of. These aren't just regular aircraft, they're the results of brilliant engineers thinking completely outside the box. Coming in at number 10, we have the Northrup XP-79 Flying Ram. Now, this is where things get really interesting. Imagine an aircraft that was literally designed to slice enemy bombers out of the sky using its wings. That's right, this plane was built to deliberately crash into other aircraft. The Flying Ram's pilot flew the plane while lying prone, basically flying while lying on their stomach. This position wasn't just for comfort. It allowed pilots to withstand higher G-forces and gave them a better view of their targets. The aircraft was built using magnesium alloy, making it incredibly strong. What made the Flying Ram truly unique was its defense system. The pilot was protected inside a welded magnesium chamber that was 1 inch thick. The wings were reinforced with special leading edges designed to slice through enemy bomber tails while protecting the Flying Ram's structure. At number 9, we have the Republic XF-84H ThunderScreech, and trust me, it lived up to its name. This experimental fighter was so loud that ground crews would become physically ill just standing near it. The source of all this chaos? Its propeller tips moved so fast they broke the sound barrier even when the aircraft was just warming up on the ground. The noise was so intense it could be heard from 25 miles away, and the shockwaves were known to knock people off their feet. The ThunderScreech actually holds an unusual record. It's considered the loudest aircraft ever built. The sound wasn't just loud, it was completely different from typical aircraft noise. Ground crews reported experiencing nausea, seizures, and intense headaches from the unusual sound waves. After just 12 flights, test pilots refused to fly it anymore. One pilot even said it was the only aircraft he genuinely feared. This extreme sound pollution made the XF-84H impractical for military use, and only 2 prototypes were ever built. Moving on to number 8, the Vought V-173 Flying Pancake shows us just how creative aircraft designers could get. True to its nickname, this experimental plane looked exactly like a giant pancake with propellers. Its almost perfectly circular body made it one of the most distinctive aircraft ever to take to the skies. The strange disc-shaped design wasn't just for show. It was actually an early attempt at creating an aircraft that could take off and land with minimal runway space. The Flying Pancake could fly at incredibly slow speeds, as low as 40 miles per hour without stalling. This was unheard of at the time. It achieved this through its unique disc-shaped wing and massive 16.5-foot propellers that nearly touched the ground. The propellers were so large that they had to be bent upward at the tips to prevent them from hitting the runway. Despite its odd appearance, test pilots reported that it was surprisingly easy to fly. Charles Lindbergh even took it for a spin and praised its handling characteristics. The aircraft's design was so unusual that people often mistook it for a UFO. There were numerous reports of flying saucer sightings around Connecticut during its test flight period. One famous incident involved a coastal defense unit that nearly opened fire on it, thinking it was an enemy aircraft because they'd never seen anything like it. The Convair B-36 Peacemaker was a marvel of aviation engineering, earning the nickname 6 turning 4 burning due to its unique propulsion system. This massive bomber combined 6 massive 28-cylinder radial engines mounted in a push configuration, propellers facing backward, with 4 jet engines, creating an extraordinary sight in the skies. The B-36 was a true giant. Its wingspan stretched an incredible 230 feet, and its tail towered as high as a 4-story building. The aircraft could fly missions up to 40 hours long, carrying nuclear weapons at altitudes beyond the reach of most interceptors of its era. What made it particularly fascinating was its contra-rotating propellers and the distinctive sound they produced, described by many as a low-frequency rumble that could be felt as much as heard. The flight deck was 2 stories above the ground, requiring a specialized ladder system just for the crew to enter. Despite its size and complexity, the B-36 served as America's primary nuclear deterrent throughout the early Cold War years. Oh, and real quick, please take a moment and hit the subscribe button. It really helps out my channel. At number 5, the Hiller VZ-1 Pawnee stands as perhaps one of the most unusual aircraft ever developed, quite literally a flying platform. Imagine a soldier standing on what looks like a large metal disc, controlling their flight by simply shifting their body weight. This peculiar aircraft, developed in the 1950s for the US military, worked on a remarkably simple principle known as kinesthetic control. The platform featured 2 counter-rotating propellers housed within a duct beneath the pilot's feet. These propellers created a cushion of air that provided lift and stability through something called the ducted fan principle. The pilot, standing upright on the platform with nothing but a small handrail for support, could control the direction of flight by simply leaning in the desired direction. The VZ-1 could hover at heights of up to 15 feet and reach speeds of about 16 miles per hour, which might not sound impressive until you consider that the pilot was essentially surfing through the air. Testing showed the platform was surprisingly stable and relatively easy to control, even for inexperienced pilots. The US Army envisioned using these platforms for reconnaissance missions as they were small, quiet, and could operate in confined spaces. Despite its innovative design and successful testing, the VZ-1 never went into production. The military eventually decided that the platform's low speed, limited range, and the pilot's exposure to enemy fire made it impractical for combat operations. However, the VZ-1 remains a fascinating example of how creative thinking can lead to unique solutions in aircraft design. At number 5, we have the Lockheed XFV Salmon. It stands as one of aviation's most daring experiments in vertical takeoff and landing. Think of a fighter plane that lands and takes off while balanced on its tail like a ballerina in point. The aircraft got its nickname not from its color, but from the project's lead test pilot, Herman "Fish" Salmon, who must have had nerves of steel to fly this plane. The XFV's design was revolutionary for its time. Standing 36 feet tall on its tail, the aircraft looked more like a rocket ready for launch than a conventional fighter. Its massive contra-rotating propellers, powered by a 5,500 horsepower Allison T40 turboprop engine, were designed to provide enough thrust to lift the aircraft vertically. The landing gear consisted of 4 spindly legs that extended from the tail section, giving it an almost alien appearance when standing. What made the XFV particularly challenging was its unique pilot requirements. During vertical takeoff, pilots had to sit facing upward, essentially lying on their back like astronauts do. Once airborne, they had to transition to horizontal flight, a maneuver that required exceptional spatial awareness and piloting skills. Landing was even more demanding, as pilots had to look over their shoulder while essentially backing the aircraft down to the ground. At number 4, the Ryan XV5 Vertifan brought a completely different approach to vertical flight. Instead of tilting the entire aircraft or using rotating propellers, the XV5 incorporated large fans built directly into its wings and nose. These fans were hidden behind doors that would open when vertical lift was needed, transforming the seemingly conventional aircraft into a hovering platform. The XV5's fan system was a marvel of engineering for its time. 2 5-foot diameter fans were mounted in the wings, while a smaller 3-foot fan sat in the nose. These fans were powered by exhaust gas from the 2 J85 turbojet engines, which was diverted through a series of ducts. During vertical flight, the wing doors would open, allowing the fans to create a powerful downward thrust. The nose fan provided precise pitch control during hover, giving pilots unprecedented maneuverability at low speeds. The transition from vertical to horizontal flight was particularly elegant. As the aircraft gained forward speed, the wing doors would gradually close, and the engine power would be redirected to conventional jet thrust. This smooth transition was one of the XV5's most impressive features, as many other VTOL aircraft of the era struggled with this crucial phase of flight. Only 2 XV5A aircraft were ever built, and tragically, one was lost in a crash during a demonstration flight in 1965. The surviving aircraft was modified into the XV5B, which continued testing until 1972. Despite its limited production, the XV5's innovative lift fan concept influenced future VTOL aircraft, including some modern military aircraft designs. Both the XFV and the XV5 represent bold attempts to solve the challenge of vertical flight, each taking radically different approaches. While neither aircraft entered production, they pushed the boundaries of what was possible in aviation and contributed valuable lessons to the field of VTOL technology. At number 3, the Douglas X-3 Stiletto. Imagine an aircraft that looks like it flew straight out of a science fiction movie. With its needle-sharp nose and sleek, razor-thin fuselage, the X-3 Stiletto earned its name honestly. This remarkable aircraft was unlike anything else in the sky. Its fuselage was so slim that the pilots practically had to lie down to fit inside the cockpit. The Stiletto's design was revolutionary for its time. Its wings were extraordinarily thin and short, and the entire plane was crafted from titanium and stainless steel, materials that were rarely used in aviation at that time. While it was designed to reach speeds over Mach 2, its engines couldn't quite deliver the power needed. Still, the Stiletto's research proved invaluable for future aircraft design, particularly in the areas of high-speed stability and heat-resistant materials. At number 2, the F-111B, a bold naval experiment. The F-111B represented one of aviation's most ambitious attempts to create a multi-role carrier fighter. Its revolutionary variable sweep wings could adjust from 16 to 72.5 degrees, theoretically combining the best features of conventional and delta-wing aircraft. Despite advanced features like the AWG-9 radar and Phoenix missiles, its 79,000-pound weight and 75-foot length proved impractical for carrier operations. Pilots struggled with poor visibility during carrier approaches, and the aircraft's sluggish handling at low speeds was particularly problematic. After spending $377 million on 7 prototypes, the Navy canceled the program in 1968. However, its legacy lived on in the successful F-14 Tomcat, which refined the variable sweep concept into a more practical naval fighter. At number 1, the XB-70 Valkyrie Speed King. The XB-70 Valkyrie was a spectacular marvel of aerospace engineering, a massive 6-engine bomber that looked more like science fiction than reality. Its most innovative feature was the ability to sustain Mach 3+ flight through ingenious design elements like drooping wingtips that created compression lift by trapping shock waves underneath. The honeycomb structure of titanium and stainless steel could handle extreme temperatures, causing the fuselage to grow several inches during flight. At altitudes above 70,000 feet, the aircraft would cruise faster than a rifle bullet, powered by 6 engines mounted side by side. The forward-positioned cockpit and canard design gave pilots the sensation of driving a school bus from the second floor. What made the Valkyrie truly remarkable was its ability to operate in an environment where the rules of conventional flight seemed to bend. At full speed, the aircraft's skin would heat to over 600 degrees Fahrenheit, requiring special fuel that acted as a heat sink. The sonic boom it created was so powerful it could be felt on the ground from 70,000 feet. Only 2 were built, with 1 lost in a tragic crash. The surviving aircraft stands in the Air Force Museum, representing an era when pushing speed and altitude limits defined aviation advancement.